Good morning, Stephanie Arnold here, and I just wanted to talk with you this morning about your why and what that means and what that looks like. So, I was never really familiar with this concept until Beachbody and until reading the book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And it really kind of just blew my mind about your motivation and how to be disciplined, because I've always struggled with discipline in my life. I've always just told myself that I'm just not one of those kind of people. Some people, they have discipline and some just don't, and I'm always the one that doesn't have discipline. And I just kind of use that as an excuse my whole life. And it wasn't until this last year that I realized that I don't have discipline because I don't choose to have discipline. And I don't, like, the things that I was choosing to be disciplined about, like that I was struggling with, were things that I wasn't passionate about, or things like I hadn't dug deep enough to figure out why I wanted to do those things. So the reason we need to dig a little bit today and figure out why you're here and what your goals are because I can teach you how to make a budget. I can do that. I can show you how to cut to the bare bones so you have very little expenses, so you don't have a cable bill, so you don't have cell phone bills. I can do all of that for you. But that's like stupid, right? That's not why you're here. You're not here to live a life of extreme lack. Like, that's not what I want for you. But if we were to put you on a budget like that, you're not going to be able to stick to it if I just tell you to do it. Like, oh, you need to do this. You're not going to do that. We don't work that way. So when you sit down and figure out, okay, well, why do I want to live on a budget? Why do I want to get out of debt? What will that mean for your family when you're debt-free? When you live in a house that is completely paid for? What will that feel like? So you really have to start digging. And so today's assignment is a little bit deeper. It's going to take you some time. It's a good thing that it's a holiday because you'll have some extra time today. But just take some time. If you're married, sit down with your spouse and figure out why it is that you want to get out of debt, that you want to build a savings account, that you want to reduce your spending. And dig deep. I mean, a lot of times it goes back to, growing up in a house where, your parents were always in debt and creditors were constantly calling the house. You weren't allowed to answer the phone because the creditors were calling the house, and you don't want that for your family or your children. Or maybe an example for me, I grew up in a great house. I've had a great childhood, but every morning my mom would drop me off at school before school started, about half an hour to 45 minutes before school started, and would pick me up 2 to 3 hours after school ended every day. So she could be at work all day, because that's what she needed to do. She needed to pay the bills for us. And for me as a kid, I hated that. I just felt like left a lot. And so, and I didn't understand as a kid. And so I don't want my child to experience that. And so for me, that was my biggest reason in wanting to be able to work at home, was so I can be there at the bus stop or drive my kids to school and be there to pick them up right afterward. I never wanted my kid to feel what I felt as a kid. So that's my reasoning. So that's why I left, jobs outside the home and want to work from home. That's why I'm trying to establish an income so I can stay here at home and I don't have to go out into the workforce later on because our expenses are too high. So if we can learn to budget and live off of less when we're only living off of 1.5+ salaries right now, we're going to set ourselves up for so much success in the future. So that's your assignment today, is to just dig down, figure out what it is. What kind of household did you grow up in? Like, what are the relationships that you have with money right now? Do you think it's evil? Did your parents teach you that people with a lot of money are bad and you should just not be friends with them? You shouldn't, you're never going to be like that? Did they put those limiting beliefs on you that you're always going to have to work 2 jobs, that you're always going to have to work, 50 hours a week in order to pay the bills, that you're always going to have a student loan, that you're always going to have a car payment, that you're never going to have money saved up to be able to go on that trip to Italy that you've always dreamed about? So I really want you to just sit down today, take some time with your spouse if needed, but just talk about why? Why do you want to get out of debt? Why do you want to save some money? Why do you want to live on a budget? Because, living on a budget is great. You might be able to do it for a month, but next month, when there's 17 different things that come up that sound awesome and all things that you want to do or spend money on, but are not in your budget, if you can't go back to this reason and say, this is why we're doing this, because of this reason, and if you don't get mad about it, or it doesn't make you want to cry when you talk about it, then it's not going to help you, and it's not going to keep you with the discipline you're going to need to be able to maintain a budget long term. So you've got to have this big picture in mind about where this is going to take you in the future, why you're doing this, in order to be able to do it on the days that you don't want to anymore. So that is your challenge today. I do not expect you to share this in the group today. Just post a comment below and tell us, tell us what you did today, or tell us something. Share something that you are willing to share about your why or this whole process for you. Maybe you've done this before. Maybe you already know exactly why you want to do this. If you're comfortable, share. But just dive in and really dig deep and figure this out, because this is how you're going to be successful with your budgeting. All right.